culture is fighting for our kids to be siloed off, like as soon as possible. In 1960, 72% of families had a nuclear family. Today, it's 45%. If you're an urban inner city family, it's 1%.
1%?
Yes, families are being destroyed.
Smart Money Parenting.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Smart Money Parenting. I am here with Chad today. How's it going, Chad?
It's going great. Excited to be here. Let's go.
We're on a little family vacay today. The kids are at camp, so I had a little quick break to record this show, and we've got to talk about this. So I want to tell you something, Chad. This is crazy. I just went through like the craziest experience at Hobby Lobby with the Green family. This guy, David Green's like 82 years old. We'll talk about him in the next episode, but they said this thing that said
Not inside the store Hobby Lobby. What do you mean at Hobby Lobby? Explain that.
The headquarters in Oklahoma City, the Green family.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're at the headquarters. You're not inside the store walking around.
Right. No, they've got 13 million square feet in this crazy place.
Holy cow.
They have over 1,000. They're about to launch their 1,000th store. And just an incredible family, the most generous family in America. They gave away like $600 million last year alone, like unbelievable family. So we'll talk about their legacy in one of the next episodes. But one of the things that they talked about, and this has been on my mind ever since they said it, was this idea of, they said, who here wants your kids to be independent? And everybody in the room raised their hands, right? This is what you and I talk about. It's like, we want our kids to have good money skills. We want them to be independent, to make it in the world and to fly. And he said, well, I want you to think of the word interdependent instead. An interdependent family is a family that's closely connected while kids are learning the core principles of being like independent. Because in our culture today, so much of what people are fighting, like culture is fighting for our kids to be siloed off, like as soon as possible. And there's this crazy culture of like, in 1960, 72% of families had a nuclear family. Today, it's 45%. If you're an urban inner city family, it's 1% for nuclear family. Yes, it's crazy.
1%?
Yes, families are being destroyed. And it's just think about it for a minute. Like there's this rise in individualism, all about me. Okay. I want to do what I want to do. I want to get, something that makes me happy. I want to retire so I can go do my own thing. There's this huge rise in individualism with your kids. And, that now society is trying to teach you kids are too expensive. Kids are $300,000 plus to raise them. So you better not have any, you better not have that many of them. The world is, there's too much pollution and there's not enough resources. And so you should have as few kids as possible to help the system. It's like, really? Is that the answer? Having less people on the planet? I don't know. I doubt it.
I think there's a huge push in society to break up the family for sure. I mean, you can see it everywhere. Like you said, Scott, there's definitely a push to just do whatever feels good for you. Everything's all about you and your happiness, and don't worry about other people. And your family actually might be holding you back, or even having a family holds you back. Like getting married and having kids actually is sometimes frowned upon because it's going to hold back from you being able to do what you need to do and what you want to do. So it's interesting right now as you see like the changes in how families are viewed.
Yeah. And if you look at the school system, a lot of it is trying to break the kid off into more individualism and not connecting the family as a whole. And another thing that they said is, we used to do family by necessity, right? You had great grandparents, grandparents, parents, all were in the same place, right? Everyone was
working on the farm, right?
Yeah, everybody was sharing stories of their heritage. They're sharing the tradition. They're talking about religious, educational, social, economic standards. They're passing on the stories. And now it's so much of this independence and splitting off of people that we have to choose. We have to do interdependence by choice now, not necessity. We have to choose. This is my family. And they took us through kind of a historical cultural norm. It's like the Gen the baby boomers were like the last big nuclear family generation. And then the last show of that was Home Improvement, right? Where you have everybody in Home Improvement and the family and the neighbors, Wilson, and at least you got two married parents, blah, blah, blah. Well, and then you go from that, and then you say, okay, so instead of that, Gen X takes over and they didn't like the nuclear. And then what became the most famous show in the world? Friends.
Oh,
So
yeah. Interesting.
for 10 years, it was all about, no, friends. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I don't want to have the normal nuclear family. I can hang out and, live this crazy inner city, high profile lifestyle and just have friends and hookup culture. And that's how Friends took over. And then you get Seinfeld, the next greatest show, right? Same deal. So you look at how this, and then you have the next iteration of like millennials that were like, well, we've got to figure this out a little bit more. Then you see like parenthood is like people choosing family again, and modern family. They're trying to now put in all these modern ideas to what family looks like. But it's this crazy evolution of what people feel about that nuclear family. And I guess what we're trying to say today is we need to give our kids roots and wings. We want them to be, yes, like independent. They can
say that again, Scott. Roots and wings. What do you mean by roots and wings?
We have to give our kids roots. We have to like make sure our kids know what it means to be a part of our family, that we are interconnected, we are interdependent, that we have, like, you have a solid base here in this home. And this is what generations to come, what it means to be a Donnell, what it means to be a Willardson. Like we rely on each other, we depend on each other, we support each other, we love each other. We stay connected by choice, and we stay like this close-knit, loving family. That's what roots are. And then wings are letting them soar, letting our kids soar with the right skills. And like you and I focus on good money skills, practical skills, skills of independence in the world, so they can make it with their own families after they're done. But we never want people to say, okay, now I'm just moving off. I'm just moving off somewhere and doing my own thing. We want families. If you want long-term health, you want generations connected as much as possible.
Scott, when you talk about the roots and you talk about families living together for multiple generations, here's an interesting quote from, his name is Dr. Faivush. He says, adolescents who know more family history show higher self-esteem, lower levels of behavior problems, such as withdrawal and aggression, higher sense of self-efficacy, and a more differentiated sense of self. Also, this other quote says, tracing family roots back through generations and learning about your ancestors and your family values can help a person connect more deeply with a sense of self. Learning about their family's past, where they came from, who they were, what they did, the trials their ancestors overcame, the accomplishments they achieved, and the dreams they have, gives you a sense of identity, confidence, self-worth, and belonging. So I kind of feel like the roots and wings is excellent. And the roots part is learning about where your family's from. Like, what are the challenges that your great grandparents went through, and how can you learn and benefit from that? Does it give you a sense of appreciation knowing that your great grandparents struggled to get to America and came with nothing, or your grandparents had these dreams and goals and this is what they did? Like, having those roots, it's going to make a huge difference for kids and teenagers once they understand that, rather than being the selfie culture of TikTok and Snapchat and just, what do my friends think of me? You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Be your own hero, be your own idol, be your own legend. It's like, no, we want to be connected to our family. There's a lineage, there's a line, there's a heritage you can have. And even if there's broken families, you can look back a long ways and take the good from your family's heritage, right, and connect to that, right? Every family has crazy, every family. But what you can do is you can take the good and leave the bad and make it better for your kids and the next generations. In fact, I heard this thing, Chad, based on what you were just saying. How do you kill a family culture? Take away the chief storyteller. If you want to kill a family's culture and you want to separate and individualize everybody and just split them off and create all these schisms, just take away the chief storyteller, get them out of the home. This is this is why I think some of the cultural pressure on families is so negative, because they're removing the chief storyteller. I mean, in generations past, you always had the campfire. Grandpa's telling everybody
Right.
the story of how our family got here. You know, the story of, war. We're three generations now past World War II, and it's like everyone today doesn't even remember that it existed. The
Right.
greatest generation's dying off, and their biggest thing before they die is don't get into World War III. Remember that there's evil in the world. Remember that there's people that are out to get you, and you need to make sure that you're vigilant. Like, we've forgotten that in this generation. And so we need to bring back like good storytelling, bring back like this interdependence of families. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, my family's all over the place, there's a lot of practical things that you can do. You can connect with your family. First step is if there's broken relationships, reconnect. The leader in any relationship is the first one to reconnect, first one to apologize. And if you have a great family, but you don't get to see them very often, do not take it for granted. Set up a regular monthly meeting. Set up a family meeting. Set up a once a year, everybody gets together meeting. Like, just start it. Just be the instigator and do it. You've got to connect. This is how kids stay a part of your family, by watching you stay a part of your family, right? That is critical for your family to understand.
I think the roots and wings discussion is interesting because while we do want to promote independence, like you said, Scott, they have to know where the nest is. They have to understand where they came from. And I think that's critical because oftentimes we might promote so much independence that the bird flies away and never turns around and says, thank you, never has any sense of appreciation for where they came from. And so I think that's a great concept that you learned at that special event conference. The heritage, the family connectedness, and it's going to bring it even talks about, these doctors are talking about like improved mental and physical health when kids and teenagers learn about their ancestors and they have more appreciation for the stories in their family chain. So let's talk about the balance though of the wings. We talked about the roots, but let's talk about the wings a little bit, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to wings, I want my kids to be able to make it out in the real world. That's the point. Like, I want to prepare them well to be able to understand the core principles of money, how to earn it, how to save it, spend it, share it, invest it, how to stay out of the certain traps. I want my kids to fly. I want them to be able to get out there and make a big dent in the world, make a huge impact, and be self-sufficient, but still stay connected to us. And I think one of the biggest things that we need to do is make decisions for your great-grandchildren. If you can start thinking with your family, like, how can I make decisions today that are going to impact generations to come, my great-grandkids, you will think differently about how you're raising your kids, because you're going to think about their kids and then their kids. And I'm not just saying passing on money. That's actually not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about legacy. I'm talking about passing on, thinking and planning generationally. That's a critical piece. And it starts with, what's our family's values? What's our family's mission? What do we stand for? What do we believe? What are the things that we see as a vision for generations to come, and instill those in your kids, and just let it continue to be something that emboldens them to take on the world, not cut them off from you, but embolden them to take on the world while still being connected to you. That's the point.
And if you grew up in a dysfunctional home, like many people have, you can be the one who breaks the chain, like breaks that chain of dysfunction and says, I'm going to create a new legacy and a new family tradition. And these are the things that I want my kids and grandkids and great grandkids to have in their family, and start mapping out how you want to change the issues that you dealt with as a kid in your own family. I think that's important, is that we don't have to, I think we, at least with financial stuff, I see it all the time with dealing with people and their money. They often have a deep-rooted belief about money that they don't even know where it came from. It's just whatever their parents or grandparents told them or did or said about money. And so they believe it to be true no matter what. And so it's almost ingrained because it was within their walls as a kid. So I think we should try to step back, regardless of where you came from, and rewrite your future history. You know, your posterity could have a much better surrounding environment than your ancestors did. And so take the best lessons you can learn, but rewrite the future a little bit differently based on what you want to create. Be intentional about it. I love this concept that you brought in today, Scott, roots and wings. So how do you want to have them rooted into your family culture and values? And what would you love to see them fly for? You know, how would you like to empower them to be successful once they leave the nest?
Yep, that's it. You know, we just created this. So one of the best ways to preserve your family culture is through values, family values. It was a great practical step. Get together, yourself, your spouse, your family. What are the 5 things we stand for as a family? Write them down, make them memorable, make it an acronym, for goodness sakes. We just did ours last week and it was brilliant, Chad. This is our family values. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Faith, family, and fish. So we want our family to stand for strong faith, incredibly deep family, connected family, and fish, which is fun and adventurous, integrity, serving others, which is also creating value, and then hard work, persevering, grit.
I like it.
Faith, family, and fish. That's what the Donnells stand for. And it's just so easy. Our kids now know it. Like literally, we just told them once and they're like, oh, this is awesome. You know, faith, family, fish. And then they now can repeat it. You know, you don't want to have values that nobody can repeat and remember. It's got to be bumper sticker simple. And so this is a way for us to preserve our family culture. This is what gives my kids roots and wings. And by the way, before we end this, because I think we're done, but there's one more thing I got to tell you that I just saw.
What's
Did
that?
You know what happened with public schools in 1917?
What's that?
It was this plan to take away the parenting from the parents. It was actually part of the original design of public schools. And I'm not saying this as a slap against public education, because a lot of our listeners, I grew up in this system. I was in public education. My wife was an elementary school teacher in public schools. But I need parents to know this little bit of a warning. Do you know what the Latin root for the entire public school system was in 1917 when they launched all this? It was called in locale parentis, which means in place of parents.
Wow.
So it was this systemic plan to remove the education of these core skills from the home and be in place of parents. A lot of parents were in the industrial age. They were on the assembly lines. They were always working. We had to figure out a way to get their kids educated. And it was one of the first steps of removing these roots and wings from the home. So we need to just be very careful not to we talk about this every episode. Do not outsource your parenting. Have the money conversations, have the critical life conversations at home to connect your family for generations. That's how you get there. Okay.
All right. I love it. I'll just add to the end of that, Scott, is we're promoting something that we believe is going to connect you and the generation below you. Like, you have to have some intentionality around this. It's not easy. Scott and I are not perfect parents by any means, but we strongly believe that creating values and creating these basically roadmaps for your family to be successful are critically important. And we love the community that's listening, that's giving feedback, giving comments, questions, reviews, because we're getting great ideas from all of you. So I just want to say thank you guys for listening and contributing, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for being a part of what we're building here on the Smart Money Parenting Show and Gravy Stack. We really do appreciate you guys being a part of this.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Take care.
It takes more than money if you want to succeed. You gotta know what to do with it. You gotta take the lead. You gotta give them confidence. You gotta make them smart. If your kids are gonna thrive, now's the time to start. Smart Money Parenting.